Hey guys, this is Charles from Guitarskills.com. Welcome to this lesson where I'm going to show you how you can learn to play the guitar without having to read any music whatsoever. That's one of the cool things about the guitar is you don't have to learn how to read music, because learning to read music in and of itself is quite hard. There's a lot of stuff you need to learn and a lot of practice for that to become kind of second nature. And especially if you want to learn to read music on the guitar, it's even harder for reasons we won't get into today. But you don't have to read music to learn the guitar. You can just learn a couple of chords for your fretting hand, a couple of strummings in your strumming hand, and then put those chords together and you can actually start playing songs. If you're a violinist or a saxophonist or even a piano player, that's not always the case. So the guitar really is the easiest instrument to learn. That's the good news. It also is the hardest instrument to master, but thankfully, we don't have to master it in order to have fun. We can just get going. So let's check out two very cool concepts today that you can use to pick up chords and riffs and licks and whatever the case may be without having to read music. So let's look at three main things you're going to do on the guitar. You're going to play chords. And you are going to play single notes. And then whether you're playing chords, bunch of notes together, or the single notes, that's what's happening in your left hand, your fretting hand, okay? Playing chords or single notes. Your right hand or your strumming hand, also known as the picking hand, just needs to be able to learn some strumming patterns so you can make those chords come to life. Or you need to learn how to pick the strings separately. So really four things, right? You have chords that you can strum together when you play notes together, or you have single notes that you need to pick. Now, if you can do any of those, combination of those things, you are able to play songs. Now, here's where the fun comes in. You can do all of that without having to learn how to read music. That really is pretty cool. So let's start with chords. So what you're seeing on the screen right now, that would be this E chord. Notated if you had to read that using traditional music. So you can see that there's a key signature, there's a time signature, there are all the dots that make up the E chord, and then that specific note is a quarter note, which means how long it should ring for. That's quite confusing, right? Especially if you don't know how to read it, right? So that is an E chord. But thankfully, there's an easier way that we can write down a chord, and that's through the use of chord boxes. Some people call them chord diagrams, and that's what you're seeing on the screen right now. This is that same chord. And instead of using the standard notation, I've just got an E chord like this. So what this is all about, this is a graphic representation of the guitar. So let's look at all those things together. So if I play E like this, that is the E chord using a chord box. So let's look at what's going on here. All right, so the first thing to notice is that we have a combination of vertical lines and horizontal lines. So as you can see, that thick horizontal line, that is the nut. Okay, in this case, my nut is this white thing over here. That is where all the strings go through in order to get to the tuning pegs here on the guitar. So that's my nut. Then the other horizontal lines are the frets. Okay, now the frets are these metal wires on your guitar. All right, and then our vertical lines, those are the strings. So as you can see, there are 6 strings, strings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now those vertical lines represent the strings. And our thinnest string, this is E. That's going to be on the right-hand side. That is your thinnest string. And then our thickest string also happens to be an E, but it's going to be on the left-hand side. So now we've checked out where the nut is on that little diagram. We've looked at the other horizontal lines that are the frets. We've got our vertical lines that are the strings. And like I said, it's string 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can also give those strings names: E, B, G, D, A, and E. With the thinnest E on the right-hand side of the diagram and the thickest E on the left-hand side of the diagram. Now that is the basics of a chord diagram. Next up, we can actually add some dots to the actual chord diagram. So let's have a look at this. This will be E. And we know that it's E because there's a symbol on there that actually says E. Okay, now the fingers over here are represented by those dots. So as you can see right there, on fret 2 of the 5th string, I have to put finger 2. And on fret 2 of the 4th string, I have to put finger 3. And then on the 3rd string, I've got finger 1 on the 1st fret. And then my 6th string has a 0, or kind of like a circle behind the nut, which means it's an open E and an open B for the 2nd string and an open E for the 1st string. So now you've seen that a chord box, in most cases, it's going to have the chord name written on there. And the black notes, as you can see, as I'm fretting them, that's where my fingers go. And then if there's a 0 beyond the nut, it means we are going to play that string, but we are not going to put any fingers on that string. Let's check out another one. Let's look at C, for example. Now we can see that there's a cross behind the nut on the E string, which means that we don't have to play that string. All right, so we're only going to play strings 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. With finger 3 on the 3rd fret of the 5th string, finger 2, fret 2 on the 4th string, the open G string, finger 1, fret 1 on the B string, and then the open E string. And then I can play it like this. All right, so in your left hand, or your fretting hand, finger 1 is the index finger, finger 2 is the middle finger, finger 3 is the ring finger, and finger 4 is the pinky. And then you can also use the thumb sometimes over the neck like this. But now that is everything that you need to know in order to learn chords. So you thankfully don't have to learn to read chords using standard notation like that graphic we looked at in the beginning. You can just look at these simple chord boxes, which is a visual representation of the guitar. It shows you which fingers to put on which frets on which strings, and which strings you will be playing as open strings, and which strings you won't be playing or fretting at all. All right, that's as simple as that. So now I can take a song like Wild Thing, for example, which is A, D, and E, and I can play this. All right, so there you go. That is how you take notes that are kind of, in standard notation, it's notated on a vertical fashion. But instead of having to learn what all those dots mean and the lines mean and the funny symbols mean in standard notation, you literally just look at a black and white chord diagram. It's going to show you exactly what to play. That's when you want to play a bunch of notes together. But remember, in the beginning of the video, I showed you that sometimes we play notes separately. Or let's go, whatever the case may be. That's kind of the other way in which you can play guitar, which is more, instead of a vertical fashion where you play a bunch of notes together at the same time, in this one we still play a bunch of notes, but instead of playing vertically together at the same time, we are spreading them out horizontally like this. All right, now again, when you have to learn to read this on standard notation, it can be very tricky, especially on the guitar. And like I said, we won't get into those reasons why, but there's different notes that can only exist in one place on the standard notation, but can exist in many places on the guitar, so you never really know what to do. But again, we are in luck because there's a simple solution to this, which is known as tablature. So tablature, or if I use a shorthand, tab, is still a visual representation of the guitar using lines and numbers. So now you remember that in our chord shape, we had a vertical chord shape, all right, which showed us how to play the chords because it was literally just around this area of the guitar. But what we can do when we have tab is we have 6 lines, 6 horizontal lines, with the highest string being the lowest line and the lowest string being the highest line. So as you can see, this is my E string, the high E, and this is my low E. All right, those are the strings. Now, whenever you see a 0 on the string, that means we are not playing any frets. So if I'm not fretting any frets, it's going to be an open string. So check this out. The open E string with a 0 on the 6th string. The open A string with a 0 on the 5th string. Open D string, 0 on the 4th line there, which is the D string. Then a 0 on the 3rd line, which is the open G string. A 0 on the 2nd line, which is the open B string. And then a 0 on the open 1st line, which is an E string. All right, so what happens if I change a 0 with another number? So let's just say I'm going to play open E, and then I'm going to put the 4th fret on that E string. So I'm just going to write 4. So 0, 4, that's what it sounds like, and that's what it looks like on tab. All right, so that's open 4. Let's in fact do a C major scale. So I'm going to play the 3rd fret on the 5th string, open 2, 3 on the 4th string, open 2 on the G string, open 1 on the B string. So you can see it's just those numbers, 3 on the 5th line, open 2, 3 on the 4th line, open 2 on the 3rd line, open 1 on the 2nd line. That's going to sound like this. And I can play it backwards too. So do you see why I made the distinction between kind of a vertical approach where we have all the notes played at the same time for a C chord, or the horizontal approach where I can indicate a C major scale, making use of tab. Now thankfully on tab, you can also illustrate chords. So instead of a chord box showing C like this, I can write down 3, 2, 0, 1, 0 underneath each other using tab. And that is how I'm going to play a chord. And this is how I'm playing a scale. And a chord. All right, so let's recap real quick. We've got 6 lines. Each one of those lines represents a string. When there's nothing written on a line, that means we don't play anything. If there's a 0 written on a line, it means it's an open string. And if there's a number written on a line, that means where we are going to place our fingers for that particular string. So let's take Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison. The riff goes like this. Right, you most likely recognize that. So as you can see, I've got 0, 0, 4, 2. But 0, 0, 4 happens on the E string. And then 2 happens on the A string. And then an open D string. And then 4, 2 open on the D string. And that is how I can write down or write out Pretty Woman using just lines and numbers. If I have to write out Pretty Woman using standard notation, this is what it's going to look like. And as you can see, there's no indication of where to play any of those notes on the guitar. You would need to know what the key signature is. You would need to know how to interpret that key signature with the notes on there, what the key signature is, what the rhythms are. There's just a lot of stuff when you have to learn it the traditional way. But thankfully, we've got chord diagrams and tablature or short tab in order to really speed up our process or our ability to learn new things on the guitar. Now, if you are new to our channel, we've got an absolute beginner's video that will show you literally how to learn your first couple of chords that you can then use to play some of your first songs. And we've also got another video that shows a bunch of riffs, like I've just used these single note riffs. Links will be in the description box as and when those videos are released, so make sure you check those out. And most importantly, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to be notified whenever we release new videos, make sure you hit the bell icon, subscribe so you can get notifications, and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And then also go ahead and leave a comment. Tell us what your favorite part was and what other videos you'd like for me to release in future. Really awesome for me hanging out with you today and showing you a bunch of cool stuff on the guitar. So hopefully you are pumped now because you can learn to play songs, whether it's chord-based or riff-based, without having to learn how to read music. All you need is chord boxes and tab. And there's one other element which we'll cover in future videos, which is how to read some of the rhythms. But really for most of you, you wouldn't even need that because you can let your ear kind of guide you in what the rhythmic order is that you need to play your chords or your single note riffs. But we'll check all of that stuff out in future videos. For now, if you know how to read tab and you know how to read chord boxes, well, the world is your oyster, so to speak. All right, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video. If you'd like to get more lessons like this, then you should register for a free Guitarskills.com membership today. Simply click the link in the description box and you'll get instant access to our private members area. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Comment below and let me know what else you'd like me to cover so I can give you what you need. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel because I'm going to keep these videos coming.